While waiting for the response of my question whether I should use this or not, I go back to use my iPhone. Safer this way, okay? Reading of the book from Choose the Life You Want, The Mindful Way to Happiness. Chapter 61. Surrender to negativity or bring positive energy wherever you go. Wherever you go, no matter what the weather, always bring your own sunshine. Quote by Anthony D'Angelo. We so often reach the conclusion soon after we wake up that it's just one of those days. And by doing so, create one of those days, or we enter a situation and predict that it's going to be a bad, boring, irritating, frustrating, or annoying, and our prediction becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. In fact, however, we can make most days and most encounters cheerful, lively, positive, and pleasant if we choose to bring this kind of emotions to the situation. Emotions are contagious. Just as I am affected by other people's moods, other people are affected by mine. Yeah, it's true. So stay away from people who give you toxic Okay. Emotions are contagious. Just as I'm affected by other people are affected by mine. Okay, I read that. If I choose to enter a room with a sense of joy and excitement, my positive mood will spread and will affect those present. And while I should certainly allow myself to experience painful emotions at times, in some situations it may be appropriate to fake it till I make it and imbue myself and others with positive energy. Yesterday we were talking about imbue. What it means?
I remember it's permeate.
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 Oh, okay.
Yeah, inspire or permeate with a feeling of quantity.
A feeling of quantity. Okay.
No, permeate with a feeling of quantity.
Permeate with a feeling of quantity is called imbue. Okay. I learned a new word. Thank you. It was one of those mornings I woke up early to catch a 6 a.m. flight from Boston Logan Airport. I thought I read this, right? I read this, so I'm going to skip chapter 61. Oh yeah, I read under chapter 70. Okay, my apology. So I will read from chapter 71. Because I put this one there, I put it at the wrong place. So this is what happened. My apology. Chapter 71. Avoid confrontation at all costs or be a beautiful enemy. He that wrestle with us strengthen our nerves and sharpen our skill. Our antagonist is our helper. Quote by Edmund Burke. In his essay, Friendship, Ralph Waldo Emerson writes that in a friend he is not looking for a mush of concessions or trivial conveniency for someone who would agree with everything he says. Rather, he is looking for a beautiful enemy who will challenge and defy, enhance and elevate him. A person who only wants to be beautiful and supportive towards me without ever resisting or confronting does not push me to improve and grow. The person who disputes what I say and do without caring and supporting me is antagonistic and harsh. A true friend must be both beautiful towards me and an enemy. The idea of a beautiful enemy does not just apply to an intimate friendship with one's friends or partner, but to all relationships at work and at home. To help other people, we need to have the courage to be honest and forthright. It's not easy because especially in our culture, when you're forthright and honest, people will have daggers at you, they will keep on poking your back. But do it anyway. At my age, I do it anyway. In a very different way, since that I'm a coach, I learned to do it differently. It does help. While being empathetic and sensitive. there is a story. Okay, the story now. There is a story in the Talmud about rich Lakish, a highway robber who held up Rabbi Yochanan. The rabbi recognized that Lakish's abilities, his strength, tendency, persistence, and boldness could be channeled to learning the Torah and doing good deeds. He convinced Lakish to change his ways, and Lakish became Rabbi Yochanan's student and subsequently his study partner. The two were beautiful enemies to each other, each challenging and pushing the other to greater and greater heights. Through their work together, they became among the leading scholars of their generation. When rich Lakish died, Rabbi Yochanan was introduced to a new potential study partner, a great scholar in his own right, but he found him too accommodating, a yes man. Rabbi Yochanan never recovered from the loss. He surely missed Lakish's defiance, his insistent questioning, and uncompromising search for the truth. A relationship between beautiful enemies is about transformation. The friends do not just share knowledge but transform each other. They radically change the way they understand the world and themselves. Become a beautiful enemy to others and encourage others to be the same to you. By cultivating a true friendship, you will help each other learn, grow, transform. Chapter 72. Succumb to fear and insecurity, or be afraid and go ahead anyway. The quote, courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at the testing point. Quote by C.S. Lewis. I imagine my heroes and feel overwhelmed. The undying optimism of Winston Churchill, who carried the weight of the free world on his shoulders. The energy and charisma of Anita Roddick, who changed the way the business is done. The brilliance of Maria Montessori, whose insight transformed the field of education. And I sometimes feel insecure about the writing the next sentence or putting together the upcoming lecture. But then, before I surrender and give up, I reminded myself that my heroes, though too, were sometimes afraid. Only they did not allow this feeling to get in their way. Courage is not about not having fear. Courage is about having fear and going ahead anyway. The story, self-perception theory, proposed by Cornell psychologist Darrell Bem, suggests that we derive conclusions about ourselves in the same way we derive conclusions about others. For example, if I see a person opening a door for a stranger, I deduce that she is polite. If I see someone screaming at a bystander, I conclude that she is difficult to deal with. In the same way, part of the impression that I form about myself is derived from my observation of my own behavior. This process applies to the trait of courage. When I see people taking risks, coping with difficulties, or overcoming fear, I infer that they are confident and possess courage. Similarly, if I see myself doing all these things, I infer that I am confident and courageous. I do not need to feel courageous to act courageously. Rather, it is when I act courageously that I become courageous. You got what I mean? Think about it. Fear is a natural human experience. No one other than the dead and the psychopath is entirely free of fear. However, some people succumb to their fear and halt their effort. Others embrace the fear and go ahead anyway. Where can you embrace your fear and go ahead anyway? Where can you be courageous? Chapter 73. Act insensitively towards others or be nice. Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. Quote by John Watson. How I treat others and how I feel about myself are closely connected. The more I treat others with respect, the more I will respect myself, and the more I respect myself, the more I will do the same with others. One of the really nice things about being nice is that it's contagious. When I treat others with respect, they are more likely to treat me in a similar manner, which in turn affects the way I respond, and so on. Our behavior towards other people, colleagues, family members, friends, send out ripples that impact those we meet and beyond. Do I choose to spread calm, soothing ripples or rough and violent waves? The story. For millennia, great leadership has been associated with truth army general, the tough business leader, the ruthless politician. Our metaphors leave us no alternative to this model. After all, in a dog-eat-dog world, it's better to be dog than does the eating than the other that gets eaten. In a Darwinian world, better to be the strongest than the weakest, and to swim the treacherous water, one has to be a shark. While there are numerous examples of successful leaders that fit this model, many leaders are no less successful and achieve their success by being gentle and kind. Herb Kelleher ran Southwest Airlines for over 3 decades, making it one of the most successful airlines in aviation history and among the most admired companies in the world. How? By being very professional and very nice. Kelleher, of course, had to make tough and unpleasant decisions as the CEO. Kindness is no substitute for competence. But he always had in mind the dignity of the people he was dealing with. His humor, generosity, and kindness rippled through his organization, affecting his employees and through them the company's customers. Peter Drucker, the leading management expert of the 20th century, remarked that manners are the lubricants of the organization. They enable the smooth functioning of organization and of relationship in general. If Kelleher was able to use kindness and generosity to run an incredible successful enterprise in a very competitive industry, then we all do so in our daily interaction. Be kind, be nice when you meet a customer, a friend, a family member, or a stranger. Chapter 74. Be somber and grave, or be playful and light. Remembering what play is all about and making it part of our daily lives is probably the most important factor in being a fulfilled human being. Quote by Scott Brown. As children, we play a great deal, but then we matured and stopped having fun. Play at any age contributes to our psychological and physical well-being. It makes us more resilient, strengthens our immune system, enhances our creativity, and improves our relationships. We don't need to restrict play to the leisure activities or hobbies that occupy us once the weekday is over. We can choose to bring the spirit of play to a meal with our family or to a road trip with friends, to learning a new skill or to a professional meeting with our colleagues. Fun matters, regardless of how important and significant our endeavors are. If we go through life with gravity and somberness without having fun, we will sink into the abyss of meaningless and nihilism. Well, I must know what word this is. Play in our field, providing us with energy and drive. The story. When Scott Brown, founder of National Institute for Play, completed his book, he sent it to me to review. I was deeply moved by the manuscript, and it made me realize just how critical play is for development and growth. When I finished reading the book, I called my friend Shirley Yuwalya and told her that I didn't think my son David was playing enough. There was a moment of silence, and then she said, "Do you play enough?" Her words shocked me. She was right. I too wasn't playing enough. Not only was I paying a high price for not playing, but so was David, who was following in my footsteps. Because children do what we do much more than what we say. Until that point, play has never been a high priority for me, because who has time to play when there are so many goals and objectives, so much desire and ambitions? But Brown's book, coupled with Shirley's question, helped me shift my priorities. And though I still work hard, I have introduced more play into my life, kicking the ball around in our backyard, going on leisurely walk watching more movies and listening to more music, inviting friends over more often, and for the first time in long time reading books that have no direct benefit to my work. My children play more too. We talk so much about the importance of quality time. We try so much to squeeze every ounce of productivity and benefit out of every moment of the day. But we forget that regardless of our age, play has to be a priority. As Brown says, we are built to play and built through play. Do you play enough? Bring play and the spirit of play to your work and your relationship, your life. Chapter 75. Focus only the immediate or take the larger context into consideration. We tend to focus on snapshots of isolated parts of the system and wonder why our deepest problem never seems to get solved. Quote by Peter Senge. Rationality is about broadening our horizon and seeing beyond the here and now. When deciding on the appropriate action, I ought to consider the impact of my behavior beyond my immediate surrounding that is here. When making decisions, I should be able to look beyond the present, the now, and integrate lessons for past and projection of the future. The there and now inform and merges with the here and now. I can experience life more fully when I'm able to willingly shift perspective and choose when to immerse myself in the present and when to take a step back and reflect. Then to surrender to the here and now, and when raising above the immediate situation is appropriate. The story. Imagine the following scenario. On your way back from an outing late one night, you hear a scream from an adjacent street. You run towards the commotion and see a big guy beating up a little guy. The poor little fellow is screaming in agony. And when he sees you, he pleads for help. Mastering all your courage, you overpower the brute and free the little fellow, who thanks you and runs off. As you wait for the police to arrest the bully, you feel good about yourself for promoting justice and fairness. When the police arrive, however, you discover that the little fellow is a fugitive thief. The person you turned in to the police caught the little guy red-handed in the middle of bank robbery. Years goes by before the police catch the poor little criminal, during which he continues to steal and pillage. Our emotion responds to the most salient piece of information available to us at that time, which is why they are sometimes misleading. If one of these pieces is particularly evocative, it will affect our emotions more than will information that may be mere significant but less conspicuous. Our rational faculty can provide us with an antidote to the narrow emotional perspective, allowing us to look beyond our spontaneous reaction to a situation and to take into consideration the whole context, past and present, before making a decision. The mistake that the imaginary scenario described is understandable. The information available was misleading and there was no time for a Q&A session with the two men. However, many of us unintentionally make a similar mistake, commit a crime of passion when the entire context is readily available. When possible, take a step back so that you can look beyond the immediate, evaluate the situation rationally, and pick the most appropriate course of action. Chapter 76. Follow the prescribed path or be the scribe of your own journey. It is easy in the world you live after the world's opinion. It is easy in solitude to live after our own. But the great man is he who in the midst of the crowd keeps with perfect sweetness the independence of solitude. Quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. There are two parts to me, the public and the private. I guess everybody have that. I have that too. Sometimes I have three parts of me. One is social. One fellow, because now you're online, right? so you have to have a social uh, part of you, which is nothing to do with public, maybe a little, and a little to do with family, but it's not family. If you are a social media geek, then you will understand. I'm not yet a geek, but trying to. If the opportunity arises, I hope I can be one to encourage the elders to all jump on the social media for the fun of learning new things. One follows the voice of the crowd, the other hits my internal voice. Other people's opinions are important. They can help me solve problems, they can give me valuable advice, they can help me identify what I want to do, whether in the next moment or with my life as a whole. These voices and opinions, though, can also get in the way of finding my true calling. It is anything but easy to identify the call of my calling, the voice of my vocation. However, to become the author of my own life, I must express my authentic voice. In my writing, my speech, my action, do I have the courage to leave safety behind and chart the road not sanctioned? The story. On her way back from home one day, Luma Mafia took a wrong turn and found herself in Clarkston, a small town on the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia. Children were kicking sticks and strewn around the street for lack of anything else to play. This was a level of poverty Luma had not seen since migrating from Jordan to the US. She made a few inquiries and found out that Clarkston was a refugee resettlement town which population came from war-torn countries such as Sudan, Somalia, Ethiopia, Afghanistan, and Bosnia. A few days later, she returned to the town and gave the children in the street a soccer ball. But that wasn't enough for Luma. She wanted to make a real difference in the children's lives. And so, being a soccer player herself, started to coach them. And when they needed help in school, she helped them academically as well because there was no one else to do it. As many of the parents couldn't read or write English, in 2006, Luma co-founded a association, the Fuji Family, through which children who have survived wars are given a real chance in the new home. Luma's journey started with a wrong turn. She left the safety of the road that had been traveled by many. She took a chance and is now bringing a chance of a better life to others. Listen to your internal voice. What is it telling you? Be the script of your own journey. I am thinking. Are you thinking? I guess it's forming. And I hope whatever I'm going to propose is going to help everybody. And I can also enjoy it more when I do my job. Chapter 17. Focus on the negative or focus on the positive. To different minds, the same world is a hell and a heaven. Quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Good and bad things happen to everyone, and it is what I choose to focus on that ultimately determines how happy I am. If I focus on the negative or ignore the positive, I create a reality in which the negative is strengthened and the positive is weakened. But if I decide to focus on the positive, I give it strength and actually create a better reality. Even under most trying circumstances, there is always some good to be found that I can hold on to. And when things are going well, rather than taking what I have for granted, I can celebrate my good fortune. Focusing on the positive does not mean being detached from reality and ignoring the problems and challenges that exist in every life. On the contrary, it's all about being realistic by not ignoring the positive, which is as much part of reality as the negative. At every moment, I can choose where I place my focus and where to direct my attention. The story. Sharon, a former student of mine, had been married for 10 years when she told me this story. The first 2 years with her partner were blissful, a true honeymoon. But things took a turn for the worse. The couple started fighting, and Sharon realized that her partner wasn't Mr. Perfect after all. For the following few years, the relationship was miserable for both of them, and they began to think that it might not last. But then Sharon remembered that in the class she had taken with me when she was in an undergrad, I have reminded John Gotham's book, The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. She reread it and was reminded of one of the Gottman ideas, that by focusing on the negatives she saw her partner, she was reinforcing them and bringing this behavior out even more. Focusing primarily on negative was part of the problem, not the path towards the solution. She decided to change her focus and started to actively seek the positive. The results amazed her. Not only did she rediscover the wonderful thing about her husband, those things that made her fall in love in the first place, she actually brings out more positive behavior in him. Today, 10 years into their relationship, Sharon and her partner still have their ups and downs, as every couple does, but their relationship is a great deal better and continues to improve with time. Create the foundation upon which a happy relationship and a happy life can exist. Bring out the best in yourself and in others by focusing on the positive. Chapter 78. Rely on words or lead with deeds. Be the change you want to see the world. Quote by Mahatma Gandhi. The desire to make a difference, to bring about positive change in those we care about and in the world, is deeply ingrained in us. But often we need first to change ourselves if we are to have a chance of changing others. This is really true. In order for me to change others, I really are working through many changes myself, especially the way I talk, the way I think, the way I act, and also what I thought of when I wake up. This is extremely important and crucial. So I practice waking up with positive thoughts, and I go to bed with gratitude. So you don't leave still feeling behind. I just bury it and then I move on to the next day. What happened must happen sometimes, so let it be. To have a lasting influence, whether a teacher, as teacher, managers, politicians, or parents, we need to lead by example, cultivating in ourselves the qualities we want to see in others. The story. In the 1940s, when Gandhi had already established himself as a great spiritual teacher, people from all over India came to seek his advice. One day, a woman came to see him. She had traveled a long distance with her small child, and when she finally got to see Gandhi, she told him that she was concerned that her child was eating too much sugar. Gandhi nodded in understanding and then asked the mother to return with her child in a month. A month later, the mother and child appeared again before Gandhi. When the mother complained the child was still eating too much sugar, Gandhi turned to him and said, "Stop eating too much sugar." The woman respectfully asked Gandhi why had he waited a month to tell her son something he could have done the first time he saw him. Gandhi said, "A month ago, I too was eating too much sugar." Whether this is a precise account of what had actually happened or a made-up story, it most certainly captures Gandhi's philosophy and the way he lived his life. What change do you want to see in the world? What action do you need to take to be that change? Chapter 79. Seek validation or seek to be known. Intimacy is about letting yourself really be known, including parts that you or your partner don't like. Quote by David Snatch. We are often told that the best way to cultivate healthy intimacy with a close friend, a beloved family member, or a romantic partner is to grant and gain validation. But while validation is important at times and certainly feels good for the giver and the receiver, the real route to intimacy cannot circumvent the path of our self-disclosure. When I open up and share my deepest desire, fears and dreams, I risk being hurt, but at the same time, I create the opportunity for personal and interpersonal growth. When the focus of a relationship shifts from the desire to be validated to be desire to be known, that is when a deep and meaningful connection is created. The story. It is no great secret that the raw sexual desire we feel at the beginning of a romantic relationships wane over time. Even if we are with our dream partner, the initial physical attraction diminishes once the honeymoon phase is over. We do not need research psychologists to tell us that our novelty produces higher levels of arousal. Many people use this fact to explain, even justify, infidelity. After all, our nature drives us to seek variety, and remain with the same partner day after day, year after year, seems an antidote to passion. Sex therapy, David Snatch, begs to differ. In the years of clinical work and research, he was actually demonstrated the cellulite and sexual potential are highly correlated. In other words, sex can be better at 50 than at 25, and better after 25 years together than after 20 days. Snatch does not dispute the novelty is more physiologically arousing, but the physiological component, he argues, is only part of the equation. Intimacy, he says, is much more important than novelty. How do we cultivate intimacy? By opening up, by sharing our fears and hopes, our fantasies and dreams, our weakness and strength. As we do so, gradually over time, we unveil ourselves to our partner and to ourselves. In this way, we can spend a lifetime becoming better known, cultivating deeper intimacy, and enjoy a more profound, meaningful, and passionate relationship. The next time you interact with a person you care about and who care about you, think about how you can become better known. Open up and create intimacy. Chapter 80. Surrender to boredom or find the new in the familiar. The voyage of discovery lies not in the finding of new landscape, but in having new eyes. Quote by Marcel Proust. I think this book is very good because now we are having we are finding solutions for tourism. So this will be a good time to find the new in the familiar. So how am I going to do it? Let's see what is my success story. I experienced boredom when I trapped myself in a rigid mindset, seeing the world as static, fixed, unchanging. But the world is never still and life is constantly in flux. How can I experience the same sense of wonder, the same freshness which a little boy experiences the first time he steps on the grass or become aware of a bird? I can live the true wonder and freshness of each moment by noticing new things. Whether I think of an uncommon use for a common object, note an unfamiliar expression in a familiar face, try to look at political challenges from different perspectives, or search for distinctive details in a musical piece I heard dozens of times. The story, we often run through our busy days without stopping, mindlessly processing our surroundings in a way that allows us to ignore the world entirely. Not only do we experience boredom as a result, but we also compromise our physical and psychological well-being. As psychologist Alan Langer has demonstrated, we can exit this state and become mindful with relatively little effort. Ask yourself the following questions. What do you notice about your surroundings that you have not noticed before? Okay. What novelty do you recognize in your partner or children even though you have been looking at them day after day for years? Can you think of new uses of any objects that you see right in front of your eyes right now? Asking yourself these and similar questions on a regular basis and putting some effort into coming up with interesting, exciting and fun answers induce a state of mindfulness. Alan Langer work over the years illustrate that even a moment or two of living mindfully in this manner, drawing novel distinctions whenever and wherever, can promote our physical and mental health. Taking a little time to live mindfully, we strengthen our immune system, enjoy a significant increase in our happiness and energy levels, improve our memory and creativity, and become more accepting of ourselves and others. We also perform better professionally and our relationships improve. So rather than surrendering to boredom, start asking the questions and turn the same old into a distinctive new. So I finish tomorrow 10th chapter. So by Chinese New Year we will complete this book. 2 more days and we will complete this book. Okay, so until then, to the friends that is celebrating Chinese New Year, 恭喜發財，萬事如意。Okay, Happy Chinese New Year. Bye.